you ever let the color of your skin, where you come from, the environment you grew up in, stop you from chasing your dreams, baby, let's get it. My hand to please don't segregate. Dressed in a suit, I can't relate. Minority report, can't ignore being rich from poor and your credit score. My hand to please don't segregate. Dressed in a suit, I can't relate. Minority report, can't ignore being rich from poor and your credit score. See, all I wanna do, educate the masses.
Was that exciting?
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Yeah, I got yelled at last week for being too
weak on that.
I was tired or something.
Yeah,
it should have been you. You made it from Mexico. But yeah, well, how was your week, man?
It's good, man. It's been busy. It's been kind of like a roller coaster. We're closing on that flip.
When?
So we technically close on Friday.
Friday.
But it's kind of like an ongoing saga still, and I'll have to explain later on. But
I think next week we'll do one.
We'll go over the details.
But yeah, Billy the Kid, your host, and then
Dan Delgado.
So if you guys haven't watched our show yet, this is your first time. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the like, follow us at the.minority report podcast. See, now we're getting the hang of it.
Yeah.
We got some neat cars too, dude.
Yeah.
You probably, if you're watching, you can see it, but you'll probably see them around town and probably online or whatever. We're excited for these, but yeah, I'm excited.
How was your week?
It was good, man. I'm burnt. Actually, I got a shed that I've been working on the back of my house.
Oh, okay.
And yesterday, my neighbor was swimming, and we were like sweating, and our kids ran over there. They started swimming. And me and my friend that came and helped me, we were just like, we kept looking over there and we looked at the shed. Dude, what's crazy about those things, why do you have to, like the doors, like it's two like doors, right? And it's like just a plastic shed. Like, why did each door takes like 2 hours?
Oh my God. Well, because you gotta get level and plumb. And
dude, it was just literally like just a knob and like there was nothing to it, but it was just time consuming. It was annoying. I don't know if I like, my buddy was like, hey, you should offer this with your construction company. I'm like, yeah. At first we were like, oh yeah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, we didn't even finish it. We ended up going over there. But you got book of the week today. What you got?
I got book of the week. Yeah. So this week, I am going to highlight Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I don't know if you've read that one yet.
I haven't.
That's a really, really good one. So Jocko is, I want to say, it's been a while since I read it, but I think he was a Navy SEAL. I mean, he was like elite, whatever he was.
I've heard the title, but
right. And so the whole concept, basically what he does in the book is he'll go into a story of something that happened while he was doing his military work, and then he'll apply it to a life lesson on how you take extreme ownership of everything in your life, even things that you think have nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Like, I was late to work because there was an accident on the road. Like, actually, that's your fault because you didn't leave early enough to avoid if there were accidents. You didn't account for the possibilities of everything that could go wrong.
Yes, I've heard that concept.
So it seems kind of crazy at first, but really when he puts it in a practical sense, the way he does,
sense.
And he does a great job of like, okay, here's a story of something that happened in Afghanistan when I was in the SEALs, and this kid fucked up and he ended up, I don't know, blowing up a barn or something like that. He goes into how is that his fault? Because he was the leader. And so
I love that.
It is kind of crazy. And then what I really like about it too is that it takes the approach that he takes on it. It helps me as a manager in my day job because he basically preaches like, you give credit to the team when things go well. When things go bad, it's your fault. So, and I do that. And I feel like it's really helped me and my team just really excel. And I have just a great culture now at work because I give them all the credit when things go right, when things go wrong. How did I mess up?
Like
why did I let this happen?
Too.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a lot of leadership. It's honestly like I'd say it's not like a small book, but like it's a quick read because you're just like so into it because the stories that he goes into are really exciting. And then it's cool because like now how are you going to apply this into real life and into the leadership thing?
Yeah.
And he's got a podcast too. So definitely, I mean, his episodes are long, but definitely worth checking out. So yeah, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink.
Yeah, and like in life in general, that I always tell people that, and it's crazy, family, friends, or just randoms that I speak to, when you take ownership, like your life changes. Like it changed my life. Like it's, and we talked about it on one of the podcasts where it's so easy to be, I think it was the episode 1 or whatever, where it's so easy to just blame others, and walk away. But when you take ownership, like your life really does change. That. So yeah, I love that.
And
That's awesome.
it's crazy because it seems impractical to take blame for things that on the surface have nothing to do with you. But when you start kind of thinking in that mindset, you really realize that you do have the ability to change a lot of things.
And I mean, would you say like I would almost say 99% of the stuff is your fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like there's that 1%, right?
Twist it.
Yeah, there's that 1%. But if you, like you said, if you really lived a life like that, like, or your life like that, then things just literally like just work out. Yeah. It's crazy. I do that. Like I said, I definitely do that. And ever since I started doing it, everything just changes. And especially, in the business that we're in, like, contracting, for example, like I take ownership of everything.
Heard of him on the Bigger Pockets podcast when he was on there. And the same thing, like you're saying, like they took those lessons and applied them to real estate. And especially like, being a house flipper, like I, at the end of the day, have to take ownership of everything that happens because at the end of the day, it is my house, that I have to sell. So I can't just sit there and sell a house that's got crappy plumbing and blame a plumber. Like, no, that was my responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
But man, check it out. Like I think for what you're saying, it'd be right up your alley. You'd love it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, no, great book. Great. It's crazy. I feel like each book that we choose, like it kind of goes together. Like I had a Navy SEAL last week.
I thought about that too.
It's pretty cool. I think we should probably keep doing that or something. I don't know. We'll see.
This works out that way.
It's pretty cool. But, or we've done sequels like, this week we did this or anyways. But yeah, we have a special guest today. I am very excited. I've done my.
Let's just bring him in.
Oh. Dude, you just scared the shit out of me. you actually got me this
6
time.
Episodes.
Yeah, it took me 6 episodes to interrupt me when I was really like legit, like you scared me. Like, oh, okay. I want to watch what happened there, but yeah, we have Doug Fitzgerald today. How you doing, Doug?
I am doing great. This is awesome. Thank you so much for having me come in.
Oh no, thank you for coming. We're like super excited. I know you're a busy guy and we've tried to have you, but I'm glad it worked out this time. So I'm glad to have you here. I want to start off with One Shot, One Life. Great book. But I mean, there's so much that I want to talk about.
You're so happy right now.
I'm
Billy's so a fanboy right now. Let's calm down.
I'm like a kid right now. I have a copy signed, bro, if you want to buy it. Doug's like,
I like that. I like that. Multiple streams of income. That's what you're talking about.
There you go.
You're learning.
But if you could start off by just your starting point, like where are you from?
Sure. Originally from Albion, Nebraska, which is a small town north of Lincoln, about 2.5 hours, and grew up on a farm. My dad was always an entrepreneur. He owned a fuel business where he hauled fuel to all the farmers. And then he also had a farm. So we raised hogs and corn and all that stuff. So the unique thing about that is, number one, entrepreneurism has always been in my blood. But secondly, I was able to watch him as he crafted his business and income when hog prices were down, corn prices were usually up, or when the fuel industry was down, other parts of the business in farming was up, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. So he was able to balance that out as an entrepreneur from an income standpoint. So I just learned a lot of good,
You said blood. I feel like that's a big argument with entrepreneurship. Like, do you believe that for sure you got to have something in your blood, or is it something that you learn?
Well, you're learning all the time.
Right? Yeah.
So I think there's an inclination for some people, though, that they have the personality where they're drivers, because you have to be a driver to be an entrepreneur. Not only that, but you have to kind of have some tough skin. So there's things you learn along the way, but I think there has to be that kind of a natural pull, all that also as well. And I think you can learn.
Yeah.
And I think there's a combination of all that.
Because like I told Dan this before, like one of my uncles in California is always telling me, oh, you have your grandpa's genes, and with me, it's more like, well, no, I just love doing what I do. But yeah, no, that's why I wanted to touch on that.
And it's hard being an entrepreneur. Let's just face it. You guys were just talking about, Extreme Ownership, which is a great book, by the way. But taking responsibility for, that's a hard thing to do, number one, and then put your life's work on the line, and your reputation on the line, is difficult, and it takes some tough skin sometimes. It's hard to be a leader, in the world. So.
I think it takes a lot of humility.
Yes.
And on the topic of the extreme ownership, that takes a lot of humility to realize, like, okay, I messed up here, there, and so it actually worked out really well, because I think a lot of those topics are probably a lot of what you also kind of go by with what you're doing right now. So I guess before we get into the rest of it, can we kind of get a little bit of a quick synopsis on like what it is that you do, and then we can kind of go into like more detail?
Sure. So when I was 16 years old, their radio station opened up in town. And I don't know about you guys, but I always had childhood dreams. And so my childhood dream was I was always playing basketball in our driveway. Remember boom boxes? Did you guys even have boom boxes?
Yeah.
So I had my boom box, right? And back
Did
then.
you break dance?
Oh no!
Okay.
I can't move for anything, man. But my daughter can. She got those genes, but I didn't. But Casey Kasem. I don't know if you remember Casey Kasem from the Top 40.
Yep.
And so I would listen to him while I was playing basketball. And I'm like, man, I would love to do that someday. So I always dreamed and had it mapped out. Like I go to Lincoln, Omaha, Kansas City, Chicago, LA. Ryan Seacrest has my job. That's what I always tell my kids, because that's ultimately what I pictured for my life.
That's crazy.
So a radio station came to town, and my mom and dad were always encouraging us, if you got a dream, go for it. I mean, the worst that can happen is somebody says no, and you keep moving forward. So I went to the radio station as a 16-year-old and said, I'd love to work for you. And the general manager goes, all right, you got the weekends. So that kind of, that started the process of me learning the radio industry, but then loving it. It was one of those things where it never gets out of your blood, at least for somebody like me, because I knew that I was going to move forward with that. So I was in radio for about 8 years, worked in several different cities, actually had a #1 morning show here in town in Lincoln. And then at that point, God called me into ministry. Now I also had a business at the same time, but so we had a business. It was a graphic design publishing company. I sold that half out, got into ministry. I was a pastor for about 13 years. We were in Dallas, Texas for about 5, and then back here in Lincoln for about 8 more. Mm-hmm. And then God called us full-time into business. And so with that business, my wife and I, over the last 15 years, we currently have 5 different businesses that we run out of our homes.
Wow.
So, we're entrepreneurs, and we've taught our kids that as well, and the importance of multiple streams of income as well.
Yeah. Because
especially in society today, things can change on a dime. Mm. It's not like you can work for a company now for 30, 40, 50 years, have a pension, and know that you're going to have a secure retirement. Yeah. That's just not guaranteed anymore. Mm-hmm. So we're always teaching our kids and people that we work with through our company about the importance of taking ownership for your life and also exploring possible other streams of income that can really benefit you and your family. So with the success of the business, about 5 years ago, I hired a business coach. I'm a big believer in investing in yourself. It's extremely important. Mm-hmm. And so just like with what you're doing here with the podcast, learning and growing and developing and investing in yourself is going to pay more dividends down the road for you than sitting back and doing nothing and just hoping something's going to happen in your life.
Exactly.
So I hired a business coach, and I'm like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? How am I going to develop a life that really allows me to add value to other people? And then get to the end of my life and say, I really am proud of what I did. So long story short, we ended up developing and writing my book called One Shot, One Life. And really in that are the principles that I have been teaching for decades, both in business, when I was a pastor, and I've taught to thousands of people around the country. And it's just 5 principles that we teach called the Ultimate Success Formula. It's nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun, but the way we communicate it and get it out is new, right? So we need to constantly be communicating these principles. So the success formula are 5 principles that we use. Number 1, you got to identify clear priorities, set clear priorities in your life. And what I teach is a lot of people will set goals, but what I see a problem with that is a lot of people see it as like a New Year's resolution. Like, well, I really hope I can achieve that, but they never set anything else behind it that's tangible. So they, after a couple of weeks, after trying to pursue it, if it gets difficult or they lose insight into it or interest, they just kind of drop out. What we teach is setting clear priorities. And a definition of a priority is something that's vital, that has to get done. And if it doesn't get done, something else in your life is going to get sacrificed. So if you're struggling with your relationship with your spouse, all right, and you're struggling with that, the end result might be divorce down the road. What you need to do then is set a priority. Say, listen, I want to take care of my relationship now so it doesn't get bad in the future. Financially, let's say you haven't been paying your electric bill for 3 months, all right, and your bill's about ready to get shut off. It's vital that you pay the bill, or you're going to go without electricity. Okay, so we help teach people to set clear priorities. And the areas, let me back up just a little bit. So before we wrote the book, my business coach said, I want you to ask this one question to people, which really started giving us a guide of how we were going to help serve people with One Shot, One Life. So the question was this: what do you worry about that keeps you up at night? So I asked 92 good friends and colleagues that question. And they nearly all of them got back to me with in-depth, heartfelt answers, which I was honored to receive. Mm-hmm. So we took that information and we compiled it. And so here
what age group was that?
So mainly the age group was men and women 35 to about 55.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the demographic we initially sought out to reach.
Exactly. Okay.
So the areas that as we compiled them, the top areas that people worried about that kept them up at night were money, people or relationships, their faith, work and career, their health, and sex. Was it number 6?
Yeah, I'm going to have to listen to this episode, bro, and take some notes. I love it. Wow, that's crazy.
So obviously with sex, we put that in with relationships because that's vital.
Yeah.
It's part of your relationship with your spouse.
Yeah.
But then the final one was your hopes and dreams. People feeling like they weren't making a difference in their life, or they weren't living out what they felt like they should be doing in their life. That, sometimes you have hopes and dreams and people kind of, they either kind of poo-poo them or they're hard to get, done and they lose interest in them. But yet still something deep down inside says, man, I really want to do a podcast to change people's lives. I really do want to flip houses because that's a passion of mine. Or I really want to be in the radio, or I want to help kids,
So with that research, did you see any difference on like 55, at the age group of 55 and then 35, like were those priorities differently, or like how, like, if that makes sense, or like their dreams maybe meant
like how were they ranked?
Yeah, maybe their dreams meant more when they're 55. They should have, could have, would have, or when you're 35, like was it money? You know what I mean?
Exactly, and you're right. I mean, the younger they are, the more they're focused on career, finances, relationship. The older we get, right? All of a sudden now we're wondering, do we make a difference? Does our life matter? Especially for men, what I found out working with men, we second guess ourselves quite a bit. And, do we matter to our families? Do we matter to those around us? Are we making a difference? And have we missed out on the key years in our life to pursue the dreams that we've had? And a lot of people do, because they get in a career and they feel like they're stuck and they don't feel like they can pursue anything else outside of that. So they just kind of, they hoe the row, you know what I'm saying? And they keep going step by step and they feel like that's what they should do. But yet still deep down inside them, there's this dream that's dying. And so I agree. Or there's regret as well. The older you get, there's a lot of regret. Of things you should have done. Yes. I always say, don't shit on yourself, right? Because people always say,
that's good advice.
I like that. I love it.
People always say, I should do this, and I should do that, and I should do this, and I should have done this. And I'm like, well, quit shitting on yourself. Like, start doing it. Start taking care of it now.
That's
right?
awesome.
Like, for instance, like a lot of people will say, I want to, like for instance, maybe they have a daughter, and they want to pay for their daughter's wedding one day, and their daughter's 2-3 years old and cute, and they're like, I really should someday start saving some money for that wedding. And then they get to grade school, man, they're getting, they're starting to pursue their little dreams. I really should start saving. Then they're middle school and high school, and the next thing you know, they're about ready to get married, and they say, I should have saved for that wedding, and now all of a sudden they don't have it there available. Maybe it's for school, anything in your life where that you should take, we call it needs, shoulds, and wants. Needs are things you must take care of today when you look at priorities, or else it's going to drastically impact your life. Like paying an electric bill. If I don't pay it this month, electricity is gone. That's a need, right? Should is something that you should take care of today. And if you don't take care of it today, it's going to turn into a need. Does that make sense? Yeah. Wants are things that we want to achieve in our life. Those are those dreams that we have. And the sad part is, I think a lot of times in our society, people feel guilty for pursuing wants, pursuing dreams. They feel like, maybe it's taking away from things that they feel like they should be doing. The reality is, I think wants add vitality to your life, right? Wants give you that energy and that purpose for living. And so we need to have a balance of mix. So I'm always assessing every quarter, evaluating my life of saying, what are the things I need to do? What are the things I should do? And what are the things I want to do? And making sure that that those things are getting done. step by step. So,
and I love how you touched earlier too on like it's one of my biggest pet peeves too. Like, okay, I'm gonna do it Monday or on this, man-made calendar date. It's like, no, if you really want to change your life, it's like, do it now. Like, start now.
Yep.
Like, what? Not even tomorrow. And I've actually done that, like the cold turkey, which obviously, that gets more in. There's a line there too, but like I just, whatever habit I want to do, I just stop it and do it. But no, that's awesome. So this book then, so it came from the business mentor that you got then. Is that where, or did you want to write a book like way before, or like how, like
real quick before you get into that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a quick point that I find awesome in your story so far is that you, by the time you got a business coach, you'd already been doing this for how long?
Right. Yeah.
So it's so cool to see that someone who's already so experienced in entrepreneurship, you saw, hey, I have more to learn. I can still grow. And you were, like you said yourself, you're following your own advice, and you're saying, I'm going to invest in myself, because a business coach isn't cheap.
No.
And so he's like, no,
no,
but it's worth it.
I spend tens of thousands of dollars a year investing in myself.
Right.
And for a lot of people, they think that's crazy. But the reality is, if you don't, you're always going to be stuck. John Maxwell calls it the law of the lid. I don't know if you know John Maxwell.
Oh yeah.
So John's, he's a leadership guru who's been around forever. I think he's in his 70s now, and he travels around the world. But if you ever hear him speak, he'll talk about what he calls the law of the lid, and he does this on stage. Mm-hmm. And what he means by that is this: if you want to grow and develop in your life, no matter what you're trying to pursue, if you are the big fish in the small pond, you're never going to grow. Mm-hmm. Okay. You're always going to be where you're at. You're never going to grow. You're never going to take your life to the next level. Mm-hmm. He always talks about being the small fish in the big pond, which means you need to grow and develop. And that's that law of the lid. If you don't lift the lid, you're going to stay stuck at where you are, no mm-hmm. matter where you want to do and what you want to pursue. Mm-hmm. Right. But when you start increasing the lid, right? So that's personal growth, that's development, that's hiring a business coach, that's going to counseling, that's learning about new investments, whatever it is to take your life to the next level. You increase the lid, and then you're going to cap out at some point. Mm-hmm. But always being aware that that lid needs to grow. And if you're not raising the lid to where you're at, you're always going to be stuck where you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, love it.
And I've always remembered this, because look at me, here I am on your podcast doing Law of the Lid, which drives me to always remember, if I want to grow, if I feel like I'm stuck in some area of my life, I haven't lifted the lid. I'm stuck. Gotcha. And that means, hey, I need to invest in myself. I need to look at different ways of doing things. Like, for instance, this last year, one of the things my son and I wanted to do was we wanted to get involved in cryptocurrency. I was kind of skeptical at first. Mm-hmm. And so for a few years, I've been looking at it, learning about it, still very skeptical. I'm like what we teach in the book. If you're going to do something, then find a proven plan. Find somebody that you trust that's already been there, learn from them, and see if it's something you want to pursue. So we took a couple of courses, and we started getting involved in cryptocurrency and understanding that. So that's increasing, from an investment standpoint, our law of the lid, right? Yeah. So it's things like that I think are important. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Growth, definitely. Yeah. I love that you touched on that.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. That was awesome. That was great. But yeah, the book, so is that where it came, or was that something you wanted to do, way back then, or how did that come about?
So, so we talked about the first principle was setting clear priorities, right? So every year, towards the end of the year, I always go through and I write out every single hope, dream, need, should, want that I have in my life in each of the areas. So I've got lists that go back 20 years. And I know back years ago, I had written down, write a book, but it was just kind of one of those things that was in the back of my mind. It wasn't something that was ever in the front of my mind. All right. And what we teach in setting clear priorities is there's something in your brain called the reticular activating system. Okay. We call it the RAS. Okay, have you heard about that?
No, I haven't.
So I wrote about it in the book. And so the reticular activating system is this. So we got white trucks, right? Mm-hmm. All right. So, when you buy a new car, right? And you get a new car, whether it's used or whatever, but you get a different car. And for me, it was getting my white Chevy. I was proud of it. Tinted the windows, limo black and all that, right? So I get it. And the next thing you know, I am noticing every single white truck that's in the city, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So you're driving down the street, and like, oh, there's a white truck. Oh, there's a white truck.
Yeah.
Oh, his is pretty cool. Oh, there's a white. How come everybody has a white truck?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you got all this going. That's something in your mind. It's called the reticular activating system.
Okay.
In other words, when you focus on something subliminally in your life or in your mind, you're going to start noticing those things. You're going to start attracting yourself to those
And
things
that's what I was
over
saying.
time.
It's like law of attraction.
Yes.
Okay.
So what I noticed was there's a lot of things that I achieve in my life that I had written down years before that I really wasn't that focused on or remember even writing them down. But they were back here in the reticular activating system for some reason. Writing a book was one of those. It wasn't something that I actively pursued. I never even thought about it. It was my business coach saying, we were actually, the way it came about was we were creating a website. She goes, I want you to create an opt-in. You know, opt-in is where you put your name and email address and then somebody gives you something for free.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So she wanted me to create a PDF file of the ultimate success formula, the 5 principles I've been teaching for decades. And I started writing it out. I go, this is not a 2-page PDF. This is a book. And so she just said, write it. 2 years later, we got a book. It was one of the hardest things I did. But going back to your question, that was one of the things that I had written about as a priority or a goal that I had.
Would you say that if you wouldn't have written it years ago, even if it was just a thought in your head, it wouldn't have happened? Like, and what I guess to kind of elaborate on that question more, how important is it to write goals down?
Oh, it's extremely important. It's vital. I teach my kids that forever. They're high achievers. You have to write down what you want to pursue. We also teach in here, I think it's Jim Rohn, leadership expert, I think.
Love him.
And I write it down here. I'd have to make sure it's his quote. But he says that if only 3% of people in the entire world actually have a goal, write it down, and then write down a plan for it and a date to achieve it by. 97% of people don't even do it. And if you don't write those down, the reality is those 97% never achieve what they hope to do in their life.
And that's kind of, I was explaining to Dan, like the Minority Report, obviously, duh, right? But also it's that mindset, that minority mindset of, only the 3% is basically why we do this podcast, and sadly, like it's not for everybody, but it should be, you know what I mean? Like you should be this excited about life.
And I think along with that is for a lot of people, it's not necessarily because they don't want to. I think for a lot of people, it's just they're not exposed to people and opportunities like this that you're providing for people to learn about it. Because you're going to have new people learn about it and go, I didn't know how to set goals.
Right.
I didn't know what it was like. I didn't have somebody in my life that I could look up to that taught me the principles to succeed. And so you're providing a platform that is going to bring new people in that maybe they've never even thought about achieving goals or getting to that next level. Or how do I do that? What do you mean read a book? What do you mean invest in yourself? What do you mean, set a date to these goals or whatever it is? So
did you grow up like that, Doug? Like with your family? Because you mentioned they were very entrepreneur minded. Like, is that how you grew up then?
I grew up with, I was blessed with great parents. And it wasn't something like they intentionally sat down and said, all right, set goals and achieve your dreams and all that. They just supported us in whatever we wanted to do. My brother was a highly successful coach, teacher in the state, was a state champion wrestler, very successful in that field. My sister was always good at sports, always, horses. She was a hard worker. And so she achieved things in her life that wouldn't normally. My dad, watching him financially grow and develop. My mom always wanted to stay home and take care of us kids. She was able to do that. So watching that and experiencing it and living it out. And then they never capped us with our dreams. If there was something that we wanted to pursue, they gave us the opportunity to do that. And they tried to find a way. We weren't wealthy growing up at all. Just middle class, trying to make it. But if we wanted to do something, they would give us the opportunity. They would do everything they could to give us the opportunity to do that. Whether it's to simply say yes, or like my sister was very involved in showing horses and all that, trying to find a way, how do we purchase a horse and then how do we take care of them and all that, at least doing the steps that they could to allow us to do what we could do. So
it's interesting you say that because I've kind of taken the same approach with my daughter. And, when I grew up, I grew up super poor in Brooklyn in the projects. And so there were things that I wanted to do as a kid that we just couldn't afford to do.
Yeah.
And so now, I'm, fortunate enough to have the financial ability for my kids to be able to do things. And so even with my daughter, she's 13 now, but as she's grown up, she's like, oh, I want to try this. And so I'd be like, all right, well, let's go ahead and try that. Right. And sometimes she doesn't like it, so she doesn't stick with it type thing. And I've gotten a lot of flack from people. I'm like, well, why are you just spoiling her and just letting her do whatever she wants all the time? I was like, I don't see it that way. I see it as like, hey, let's expose her to things. And then eventually she's going to find something that clicks. And for her, it's been volleyball. Like she loves volleyball, but she had to go through jujitsu, through boxing, through soccer, and like all these things that she had to try it. She didn't really like it. So I think that's a really great point because if you have the ability to give your kid, but I also think it's important to tell them like, look, we'll try it, to tell them like, you still need to put in the effort, even if you don't like it. Like there's been times where, I don't want to go to practice. I don't want to do this. Like, well, you already committed to it. So we have to do that.
That's the key in the process. So we always told our kids, if you want to try to pursue something, then you're going to commit to it. So if you're going to be part of a baseball team, you're going to commit to the season because the team is relying upon you. Once the season's over, if you don't like it, you don't have to do it again. Okay. That's the learning process. I think that's the difference. I think a lot of people will put their kids in, and if they don't like it, they just quit. That's not teaching them, you know what? And as far as finances go, there's a lot of things that do cost a lot of money, but the reality is a lot of things don't. So if somebody's really interested, if you've got a kid or you're interested in something that maybe would cost you a lot of money, right? You can still go buy a book or go to the library and learn about it. And then maybe down the road, you can start setting goals to save up to get to the point where you can then start pursuing your dreams. Does that make sense?
I can't stand, the people that say, oh, I don't have enough money to follow my dreams. And I think it was Jim Rohn, actually, that said there's public libraries that are free. So guess what? If you really, it's extreme ownership. Like if you really wanted to change your life, go to the damn library.
And not only that,
and
but
that's a huge starting point.
Exactly. And then start evaluating what are you spending your money on?
Yeah.
How many times you go into McDonald's? It costs $10 for a meal now. All right. You do that 5 times a week. There's $50. $50 a week right there. Okay.
That's like $3.
That's like $3.
Yeah. Or it's like the running, like, or exercising. Oh, I don't have time, but then you have time to watch Netflix and all these series, right?
For 5 hours a night.
All right. So you mentioned, well, real quick before I get into my next question,
hold on, real quick. Sorry. One of the stuff I read about you, dog, is that you did a bungee jump over concrete.
How did you know that?
Don't worry about it. Okay, just answer the question. No, I read that.
Really?
Yeah, on your website.
Oh,
yeah, I read that on your website, and I was actually telling the wife, I'm like, I wouldn't do it over water, let alone concrete.
So when I was in radio, we did a lot of crazy things, but one of those was when we were here in Lincoln, back when the bungee craze literally started. They brought a crane to town. It was a crane. And it was,
jeez.
I would never do this now. That was the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Parking lot, concrete parking lot, crane with a little basket. They take you up and you jump out. Nothing underneath. I mean, it wouldn't even be legal now, right? I mean, all the safety issues and all that. Yeah, so we did that. I drove now, why in the world this guy would let me drive his stock car in a stock car race? But they let us radio personalities jump in their cars and actually go around the track, and race. I didn't win. I got second. But I got to fly with the Blue Angels.
Oh, cool.
That was another cool thing. They had an air show come to town, and they take a radio station, newspaper, and a TV station personality up. That's kind of the way they get their publicity. And so, I got to fly and I got to roll the plane and stuff. And yes, they did make me puke. They make everybody puke when you come back down. So that's a whole nother story.
No, I read that. I was like, wow, this is crazy. I was telling the wife that. I was like, wow, we don't even want to do it over water, that. But sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
It just popped in my head. I'm like, oh, hold on. I wanted to ask about that.
Because I'll just edit it out. I do want to get into your course, and because you just brought up some really good gems there. But before I ask about that, when you mentioned writing your book, mind you, this is something that you've taught for years, that you're passionate about, obviously, but you said it was really hard.
Yes.
What was so hard about it?
Writing a book was the hardest thing I think I've ever done in my life. A lot of people...
You scare me. I want to write one.
Yeah, well, I'm asking for you.
Thanks, bro. Take some notes.
Well, good luck, Billy. No, it's like, I tell people, it's like, and I've never birthed a child in my life. So, okay. So all the women out there are gonna be like, what are you talking about? You've never done this before. But I did watch my wife go through the process. Yeah. But I always equate it to birthing a teenager. In other words,
geez, so not even that's even worse.
because it's like, oh wow, we're pregnant and we got this baby coming, and like you're so excited to write the book, right? And you got all these ideas, but in the process of writing the book starts talking back to you like a teenager. And it's like some days these head games come, talk about writer's block. For days I would be stuck on writing a paragraph. Other days I'd write 3 or 4 or 5 pages like that.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating going through that process. So I think every author that I've talked to, and I'm part of a highly paid mastermind group that's authors. It's just a difficult process because you're pouring your heart and soul into something, and it's personal. It's a mental, emotional, spiritual event.
Yeah,
and it's hard, but it's one of the most satisfying events when you get it completed.
So there has to be some kind of therapy on that too.
Oh, you mean going through the process?
Yeah,
needing therapy. I had a lot of counselor fees writing the book, so
like therapeutic,
absolutely.
Writing it, and even just the story. I'm not gonna spoil it, but like the beginning of the story, I mean, it was awesome how you start the book. Like it was a great story. Which again, if you guys want to check it out, One Shot, One Life.
We'll put the link. Is it on Amazon and all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So to go along with that book, so how do you take this great piece of work and do a part 2? Because you were kind of mentioning like you're thinking about doing a part 2, and not part 2, but a second book.
Right.
So how, like that is that like birthing like a 55-year-old at that point, like not a teenager?
It might be. I'm losing my hair. So, good question. So you guys know Robert Kiyosaki?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I love the concept that he has where he teaches and educates people in different areas of entrepreneurship, right? So businesses and business growth, real estate, gold and silver. I mean, he's got, so underneath his whole umbrella of Rich Dad, Poor Dad are several different areas of growth. So what we wanted to do with One Shot is One Shot's the overall teaching of principles to be successful in any area of your life. Okay. Then what we want to do is take those areas we talked about: money, people, faith, work, health, hopes, and dreams. And then in each of those categories have tools and resources where people could achieve their priorities. So one of my passions has always been, over the last 30 plus years, is helping people with basic financial money management. And so that's one of the areas, since that's one of the top things people worry about, is that we want to help them with. All right. So with us, what we did about a year ago is we created what's called You versus Money, because that's one of those hard battles that people struggle with. Right. And I like to tell people, tell your money what to do. Don't let your money tell you what to do. And
I love that. I love that.
People always let their money tell them what to do, right? Keep up with the Joneses. They want the next cool thing coming out. They spend money on things they shouldn't, rather than telling their money what to do. And so basically we teach basic money management with You versus Money. So we started out with a mastermind group. We're going to have an online course, and then it will be the next book. Okay. And hopefully it won't be as difficult now that I've gone through the first one. We'll see.
That is true. Like the experience. Yeah.
But
so you mentioned on the break about the course. Can you go over again the receipt thing? Because that was pretty good.
Yeah. So we talked about earlier on the podcast, we talked about, how do you spend your money? You're spending, you're going to McDonald's every day, and we don't have money left over. So one of the first things we teach is teaching people about net worth. So like when you're, I don't want to get too in depth with it, but if you want to lose weight, you want to lose 10 pounds, how do you gauge that?
If you want to lose 10 pounds?
If you want to lose 10 pounds, how do you know if you lost
better?
Look at the scale.
You step on the scale, right?
Yeah.
And so what I teach people that's different than what a lot of the people teach people is about money is understanding net worth. Net worth is the scale. So if you want to be richer tomorrow than you are today, how are you going to do that? You got to gauge it. And your net worth is going to teach you. What do you owe versus what do you own? And you subtract that and you find out what your net worth is. So I want to get into that. The second thing we teach is what we talked about earlier is people don't understand really where their money goes a lot of times. I mean, seriously. I mean, everybody I work with are like, man, I did not realize we were spending that amount of money on X.
Yeah.
Okay? So what we teach them, the first thing to do is they have to keep every single receipt of everything they spend. But Doug, how do I keep a receipt? I don't have my phone with me. You got yours there, but I use my phone to buy everything. Well, you can print it out.
Yeah.
You can print it out. You can have it emailed to you. So every time I buy anything online or on my phone, or whatever, I print out the receipt.
I love
that.
And
I throw it in the receipt box. We've been doing that my wife and I have been doing that pretty much since we've gotten married. It's the hardest thing for people to do.
So it's that tracking, right?
It's accountability too.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So you have a tub of receipts. Now here's what people don't like. Now you got to track those receipts. You got to categorize where are you spending all of this money. And that is the most revealing thing for people in their finances. That's the hardest thing. Once you realize where you're spending your money, now you can start saying, all right, I'm going to tell my money what to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop going to McDonald's. I'm going to buy some groceries and eat at home and save about, an extra $50 or $60 or $70 a month. I'm going to take that money now and I'm going to pay off my credit card debt. I'm going to take that money and I'm going to invest it. I'm going to take that money and do the things that I know I should do with my finances. So that's a little bit about the receipt box. And then we do a lot of other things, obviously.
Well, I think it's cool too that you still do it. It's not.
Go to our house. Ask my wife. It's so funny. And the funny thing is what we do with our accountant, and that's a whole other concept. You have to have a finance team around you. Oh, yeah. You've got to have an accountant you trust, a banker you trust, attorney you trust, all this stuff, all right? From a business standpoint and personal standpoint. But our accountant loves us. And every year I go in, we go in with a tub. I'm not kidding. Awesome. With all of our receipts categorized in manila envelopes, big old tub. I walk in, you can ask him. And every year I say, do you want me to do this digitally, Mark? And he goes, nope, I love what you have because it's tangible evidence of what you spent. So we keep doing it. So I got tubs from every year,
That's awesome.
Sitting in the basement, just sitting there. But it's a tangible, physical result of what we spent our money on.
And it goes to kind of like the tangible thing, the book, like I love the smell, hold it better than, reading it online or even Audible. I love Audibles, but it's just that tangible, which nowadays we have apps that keep track, but it's that tangible thing that.
And there's something psychological, not just about holding something, but also writing it down.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
So, that's why I write and we teach people. They hate this. They hate this, especially in the money course. In my course here, when I have a mastermind group and I lead people through the process, I tell them, you have to handwrite this out. I said, after you get done with it the first time, if you want to do it digitally, that's fine. But the first time I want you to write it out because there's something psychological that ties what you write down to your brain. Okay. And even my son had asked me, he's part of a mastermind group where they're going through this year. It's Gen Z, I think, is their age group. So it's our first millennial Gen Z group that I have a coach leading. And the first thing he asked me when he came over to our house as he was going through, he's like, do I have to write all this out? He goes, I can create an app for you where you can write it out. I said, well, cool. One day we'll create an app.
Yeah.
But for now, this first time through, I need you to write it out. And eventually what happens is people realize that there is a connection and there's a value to that.
Yeah. And if you could elaborate a little more on that, as far as that and like vision, like having a vision board or, to go along with your goals, like, can you elaborate and give information on that?
I personally don't have a vision board, but somebody in our current mastermind group, I lead a high paid mastermind group, and they've done vision boards forever. And so that's one of our goals this year. My goal is to actually create a vision board. I always have it in my mind. I always know what I want to achieve in mind. So me writing it out is kind of that vision board. I love the vision board concept. Yeah. Right? It's where it's just another way of tangibly like envisioning what you want to achieve.
And I do it on my phone. We talked about that. That's awesome. On my home screen, like you could see, my goals and
that's awesome.
I am this, or I figure, and I know we touched on it on one of the podcasts, but it's something that I would push, to whoever's out there because obviously it's the vision board has to be where you see it every day and your phone. I mean, before you open it, in the morning I go over it, and then at night before I go to bed, I read my vision board. And then how often would you say, so, and this is me, like a personal question that I'm kind of, so there, I'll have some goals on my vision board or whatever that they'll check off, right? So then is there, what's the rule, or how do you go to the next level? That lid that you were talking about, because I feel like, okay, or I'll just change the wording, I want to be at this financially, and then I reach that, but then I didn't reach the other, you know what I mean? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So so the 5 principles we teach are this. Number 1, set clear priorities.
Okay.
Number 2, find a proven plan to achieve that priority. So if it's with money, and listen, it's proven plan, not just a plan.
I was going to say, that's what I love about your book. It's action. Like it's action.
We've got steps after every chapter.
For sure, yeah.
So find a proven plan, a plan that's already out there that somebody has already gone through. And this is my warning. I warn people in the book here too. A lot of people create plans that they've never done before because they're just out there trying to make a buck.
Yeah.
Do not fall for it.
Yeah.
All right. Find a proven plan. Number 3 is master persistence. Once you have a plan, it doesn't work unless you work it. Right. Okay. So master persistence. The last 2 principles that we teach are what I call the multipliers. It's getting to your question. Okay. These are principles that if I'd have learned earlier on in my life, I'd have had far greater success far faster. Okay, so since implementing these over the last 15 years or so, I've been able to get out of debt faster, invest more, be healthier, yada, yada, yada. But the 4th principle, or the first multiplier, is understanding the benefits of regular evaluation. And this goes back to what you're talking about, is once you achieve a priority. So we teach people, set your priorities, never erase them. Okay, so we have them list out their priorities in each area. Then we have them go through the battle, what we call battle, and we have them get a highlighter. And they highlight off the ones that they don't feel like they need to achieve right now at this point until they identify the top 3 that they feel are vital to achieve now. Okay. Then once they get to a point and they start evaluating their success, so they start achieving their top priorities, right? And they say, all right, how am I doing? Do I need to change? Am I succeeding in achieving this priority or not? Is there something I need to change to have greater success or not? Or if I've achieved that priority, what do I do next? Go back to your list. You've achieved one thing, you go to the next vital priority on that list and achieve that next one. A lot of times people will achieve priorities and it becomes a habit. So let's say you want to get your finances under control. Yeah. For me, finances, we've been doing this for decades. It's just part of our life now. Yeah. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to plan for it every day. It's part of what we do every day. So that's not my top priority all the time. That's a background, subliminal thing. So you're always moving on to the next one, like learning crypto. For me, that was something that was out there. And it was one of the things I always wanted to achieve, but you had to take steps to achieve it. So we were at the right place at the right time then to take that next step financially to look at that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I love it.
Regular evaluation. And then the fifth principle that we teach, that hands down, people always say when I'm interviewed, when I'm speaking on stages, when I'm out and about, people say, well, what is the most important chapter in the book? What's the most important principle if I could take something away from it? And it's the 5th principle. And it's understanding the power of having a success partner. Okay. Now, what a success partner is somebody who knows you so well that you trust, that knows what you're trying to achieve in life, that's there to cheer you on, that's there to hold you accountable, that's there to pick you up when you screw up, and that's there to celebrate when you achieve what you want to achieve. And the success partners come in different forms. You guys doing this podcast are success partners. You are challenging each other to get this done, right? So thanks, bro. Here's a great, here you go. Little bro going on. But success partnership can also come in other ways. I lead mastermind groups. My current mastermind group has 11 people. We meet on every other week and we challenge each other, encourage each other. We know each other really well. Success partners come at different times in your life I've got a success partner. We've been meeting every Thursday for nearly 15 years for about 2 to 3 hours each time we meet. Sometimes you have a success partner that may last 6 months. There may be a specific thing you're trying to achieve, building the shed in the backyard and get that thing done, right? And you're working together with somebody. So success partners come in different sizes, different time frames and all that, but they're vital to push you to get things done. I always tell people your best friend is probably not the best choice for a success partner.
Wow, that's huge right there.
Because best friends will like to tell you what you like to hear, not what you necessarily need to hear. I love my wife to death. She supports me in everything I do. But if there's something I'm really struggling with and I go to her, she's always there like, you can do this. Just keep at it. When I really need to hear the hard truth. You need to change this to get to the next level, or you need to stop doing this, or you really need to start doing this. And that's where I have other success partners in my life that are real, honest. And you got to be careful when you choose a success partner, right? It's got to be somebody you can trust. And a lot of times that's hard. So I go through that whole process. In the book, people always say, well, what is a success partner? How do I find one? And once I have one, what do we do? And I lay all that out in the book of how to find a success partner. And then I give you a format to follow when you're working with a success partner to make sure you're staying on track. So.
And you kind of touched it a little bit earlier. When you set goals, then what are like I've heard the 7 F's of life. I don't know if, and it's pretty much what you said earlier, like finances, fitness, whatever,
Faith,
like family. Exactly. Yeah. So, when you do your goals, are you thinking of that? Like for each area, obviously, if you could elaborate on that.
Yep. So I look at areas of money, people, relationships, my faith, my working career and what do I want to achieve. My health is always on there. Hopes and dreams. Those are the ones that I track. And I track those all the time. Yeah. About every quarter is when So
every quarter. So you're not like a yearly, or you probably do like a year. Like
overall year.
Yeah, and then track them down every quarter.
Because sometimes it changes.
Yeah.
2020 was a year where a lot of things changed, right? And people had to readjust. I had to readjust what I did. You were with me. That's how we met.
Yeah. that is.
It's because we had readjustments of what we were doing with our properties.
Yeah.
That wasn't something I anticipated at the beginning of 2020 at all. It wasn't part of my top priorities. But once we got into the year, it became a top priority. Yeah. Okay. So those things have changed. That's why it's important to evaluate, I believe, at least on a quarterly basis. To go back and say, is what I had set out to at the beginning of the year something I really need to achieve now, or can it wait? Okay.
And for our listeners, you said, so let's say that, okay, like you said, you have finances taken care of, it became a thing. Like, how do you, what would you tell them to do so that way that doesn't fall and you're not playing defense on finance? You get what I'm saying? Like, obviously you don't put it on the back burner, obviously, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, how would that work? How does that work?
I think the next goals or priorities you set in the area of finances will keep that basic money management on track.
Okay.
So for instance, if I want to have a net worth of, say you want to have a net worth of $5 million, and you know that investment's got to be part of that process, managing your debt well has got to be that process, or eliminating whatever it is. If you don't have the foundation of basic money management going on all cylinders, you're not going to be able to achieve those next goals in the area of finances. So I think that's how you stay on track. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, but you also have to reevaluate how are we doing. So my wife always knows I've got a whole financial statement that we go over on a regular basis. And if things are getting a little off whack, we have to go back to our basics and say, all right, we need to adjust certain things. We're always adjusting.
Yeah.
All right. So, but you just have to stay focused on what is the basic. So if you want to have a really, anyway, we'll go from there. I can go down a whole nother rabbit trail. I started thinking. So.
And it's probably priorities, going back to the age group and all that. Like, obviously different people have different goals. And
sure.
So, and then you wanted to touch a little bit on, I want to, and myself included, about the mentorship, if you can ask some, the programs that he offers and stuff.
Yeah, no, I was just interested in hearing, actually, so you mentioned 2020, how everything changes. That kind of, because you mentioned earlier about having an online, program now. Was that one of the 2020 things that made you kind of shift? Rather than because obviously you couldn't do things in person so much.
Right.
So was that your way of pivoting to stay, out there and still be able to teach your content?
Actually, ours and what I've done for 15 years or so in business is actually reverse of that. We've done mainly everything online, which has been really good. So we were way ahead of the curve. So online presentations, online webinars, online meetings, we've been doing that for a long time. One of the things with our mastermind group that we wanted to expand was we wanted to do in-person events.
Oh.
And so we had planned an in-person event. It was going to be really awesome. And then, the pandemic hit and we couldn't get together for 2020. But we made an effort I think it was February this year, where we actually had an in-person meeting in our home where people from all over the country came. It was awesome. We got together. It was kind of that first in-person meeting. So, but we took that step to do it, but it was on hold for about a year to do that. So, but we've always been doing stuff on.
So you were ready for it. I mean, so that's,
it's just been, and I'm more that way. I'd rather be able to get together with people on my terms. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes when you need to get certain things done. And online Zoom stuff we've been doing forever. So
Yeah.
and webinars.
Did you see an uptick? So because I know of a lot of people that took that time during the pandemic where they were on lockdown and everything to try to grow personally. Did you see an uptick in the subscriptions that you have to those programs during that time, or any change, I guess, at all?
Yeah. I think people were more focused on what was important, which I think is a good thing. I think it was a really good thing. People are realizing that sometimes you think life gets to going way too fast and you lose sight of what's really important. And I think the pandemic allowed us all to slow down a little bit and say, all right, what really is important in my life that I need to take care of? Does that make sense? And I think that change then obviously lends itself to services like what we provide and others provide to say, listen, all right, I do want to grow. I do want to develop. I do want to take care of the important things, not just, trying to run the rat race to make things work and hope everything turns out okay. Yeah. So I think there's an uptick in that.
Yeah.
Which is good. So.
Yeah. And then what you mentioned programs, like what are the programs that you offer for anybody that would be interested out there, and just overall, like what are the programs that you offer? Do you offer on each section of life, like the 7 F's that we talked about, or how does that work?
So I've got the book, and then off of the book, we have the One Shot, One Life online course, where we just walk people through. So basically it's different levels of direct contact with us and our people. Okay. So the book, obviously anybody can buy it and go through it. The second level then would be online course, where I teach the course. I get a little bit more in depth with each of the principles and actually provide more tools. The next step is membership site. Now, we haven't created the membership site yet. That's our next step, is we want to do is create a monthly membership site for people to get more resources and tools. Then what I'm really having in, which I believe in, is creating mastermind groups. So we lead mastermind groups where that's, either I'm leading it or a certified coach is leading it on our behalf. Okay. So that's kind of the direct, and then I do one-on-one coaching. So it goes from, the book all the way to, if you want to work directly with me, I will meet with you every couple of weeks. And that's where it gets hardcore. That's where people are saying, I want to pay you to hold me accountable to getting things done. So that's what we have right now. We started, like I said, the You versus Money mastermind group last year. So we ran a couple of mastermind groups. We're in the process of creating the course, doing a lot of video creation of that. And then hopefully we'll have a book coming out soon, along with more mastermind groups. Then hopefully we want to be able to add on to that down the road. Yeah.
So you got all these blessings, all these great stuff going on, busy, great stuff. What's next? I mean, is there any gap for anything next? Like, you're doing awesome.
Well, I mentioned I was in radio, and that was always a passion of mine. And so I was in that for a long time, and haven't been in it for over 30 years. And so, but I always felt, and I always told myself, one day I'd get back into radio, more when it was kind of on my terms. In other words, when I was able to do a show of my own, where I was able to kind of what you guys are doing, feel like I'm adding the value of what I've learned over my life to those people around me that want to learn and grow, and it can add value to them. So about a year and a half ago, I got contacted by a local radio station, and about potentially pitching them a show and what it would look like. A year and a half later, I got back into radio. I'm the official fill-in guy for the station, and then actually right now in the process of finalizing contract for my own show.
That's awesome.
That will be on the station. So I'm excited about that. We'll be announcing more of that over the next few weeks. And so I'm excited about that. And it will tie directly into what we do at One Shot.
Yeah. So. And it's awesome. I know you have already a few episodes too that you've done for your podcast. I've watched pretty much all of them. So awesome content. And I mean, this has been great, but I would like to ask you a question. We try to ask all our guests basically, if you were younger and you had to give yourself advice or change something, what would it be?
Oh boy, that's a good question. It's probably the advice I still give myself. Number one, don't be so hard on yourself. If you're wanting to achieve something, a lot of times we'll just beat ourselves up. Number two, don't listen to the negative thoughts in your head. I still struggle with that. There'll be times where I'm like going, man.
How do you beat those?
Well, for me, my faith is extremely important. And I think that God has a plan for me. And a lot of times I lose sight that God's bigger than I am. So I have to get on my knees and say, God, I know you're with me every step of the way. You promised that to me. I got to live on my promises, not my expectations. Expectations come from me, but promises come from God. So that's a daily thing for me, is constantly always being in there. And I think another one is making sure that you intentionally set time aside to contemplate, intentionally set time aside every day to think, to plan, to pray. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really learn that early on until later on in my life.
Mm-hmm. And to tie into that, what's a routine? Like, what's your daily routine to work on yourself?
So I've got my own. I got my own prayer closet. So it's a place, literally, it's just a small closet room that I go to. That I've got all kinds of memorabilia from my family and things that are important to me. I've got a whiteboard in there.
That is awesome. Wow, that's super
well,
cool.
it's just
like hitting
Well,
right
because
in.
because when you said prayer closet, I thought you have like a rosary and a Virgin Mary, like, but then you're like, oh, my family and things.
I'm gonna creep you out now.
I went from tan Dan to creepy Dan.
Yeah, tan Dan to creeper.
No, I immediately thought like you meant like religious items type thing. Like,
Yeah.
you probably have some,
I do.
but when you mentioned like family stuff, I'm like, oh wow, that's actually pretty cool. Like,
Because you said a whiteboard.
So I've got a chair, a lamp, and a table, and it's got my Bible, and it's got the book that I'm reading. Okay, pen, paper, notepad. I've got a whiteboard on the board because that's where thoughts come, right? That's where I feel led to start thinking. It's one of those places where you have to shut yourself away from the rest of the world, and all of a sudden you can start thinking again, right? These ideas start coming. So I've got a whiteboard. I've got 3 shelves. Those shelves have pictures of my family, pictures of my kids, important events that have happened in my life that are important to me. I have my grandmother's and my grandfather's Bibles that are there. So things that are really important to me. And I just, spend time in there every day. That's
How long?
It depends.
So, okay, I love that. So there's not a rule. Like
the other night, I was up at 4 a.m. and I was worrying about some things that were coming up, and I just went down to my room, got on my knees for about 3 or 4 minutes, and I just prayed.
So it is like a morning routine?
Yeah, it's morning. It's mainly morning for me.
So is that the first thing you do in the morning then?
Yeah, that and work out.
And that was my next question.
If I don't work out, my mind is cloudy for some reason.
Oh my God.
So
yeah, I think some of the texts when we've done some work together, that's how it's been. Like, oh yeah, I'll be there after my run, or the same with you, like, oh, I'm on my morning run. Right. So I gotta love it.
And then I write down my my to-do list for that day. So there are things that I know I need to get done. So I write those out and I like to check them off. So, but I'll read a quote from you. I read this to a lot of people. This quote, actually, I got a few years ago at a conference. It was this conference. And the funny thing is, it was a side note from a speaker that was speaking. He just kind of threw it out there. And it was the one thing I took away that was probably the most powerful thing. It had nothing to do with the conference. But it goes back to what we were talking about here. And so Pascal, and I keep this sheet in front of me. So whenever I'm speaking to groups, most of it's done on Zoom nowadays. I keep this in front of me. But Pascal was in the 1600s. He was a mathematician, a physicist, a theologian. I mean, the guy's a smart guy. All right. In the 1600s, you got to understand that this is his quote from the 1600s. And it says this: all men's miseries derive from not being able to sit in a quiet room alone.
Wow.
All men's miseries derive from not being able to sit in a quiet room alone.
That's powerful.
What did this guy have to distract him? A horse? Build a fire? I mean...
Well, yeah, because it's easy these days to say it's easy, but like back then, what were you getting distracted by?
That's why it hit me so hard, was like, today we've got thousands of things that constantly distract us. And what could we accomplish if we would just simply get alone by ourselves and think?
Yeah.
Now, the reason why it really meant to me is I've got some friends where we joke quite a bit that our most powerful ideas come in the shower. I don't know about you guys, but why is that?
Alone.
This finally revealed it. You're alone with nothing else. Yeah. I don't have my phone in the shower. I would die. I don't have a computer in front of me. I don't have, people around me vying for my attention. I'm by myself. And that's what really hit. So when we got this different house, that's when the prayer room came about. Now I had what the war room was in my other home. Yeah. That was a bigger room. That's where I wrote my book. That's where I, have my whiteboard and all that. But this prayer room is a lot smaller, a lot more intimate. And it's meant a lot more to me because of that, I think.
So I really like that idea. We're actually in the process of remodeling our house. And I might incorporate that, I think. I really like that.
Can you put a picture of me in there?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Now that's creepy. That's creepy.
My success partner. Right?
Yeah, there you go. See, he's good. Success
portrait.
I'll get your album.
I'm at the beach. No, that's awesome. And I also, and hopefully this helps somebody out there. I have a notepad full of just quotes. So if you don't mind me grabbing that later after the show, I definitely want to incorporate that. Gotta love it. Yeah, it's definitely very spiritual when you do that. And not just that, but it just clears your mind. We've talked about what you used to do, meditation in the morning.
Yeah, I feel like when I was first starting out, I kind of had gone from like super successful when I started, and I like really slowed down. I mean, we had some personal stuff.
That lid.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't so much.
I got it down.
I think we had some stuff happen in my family that kind of just threw me off track for a while. But when I was probably getting my most momentum was when I was, working out, meditating, and doing, like, I've never been particularly religious person or spiritual, I should say, but I did enjoy meditation. And I think that's a form of spirituality. Yeah. So I can appreciate that, that's why, like, it's been something that's also been on my mind. Like, I need to kind of get back on that. And, but yeah, I love the idea of just having the room. And then, like you said, like with having your, almost like some family heirlooms, and it's almost like kind of showing you like what's important and why you're doing what you're doing. And so, yeah, I like that a lot.
Are you one of those entrepreneurs that would say that you have to wake up early in the morning to be successful, or can you wake up at like 9, 10 a.m.?
Wait, before you answer that, what time do you wake up?
We'll talk about that after the show.
Okay, so that's a good question, because there are all kinds of concepts out there about that. I've read some where it's like you have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you have to plan
exactly.
and all that.
And there's the other argument.
And there's the other side of that. Now here's what I know that works for me.
Yeah.
That's all I know. I can only share with people what works for me. Yep. You work your tail off to be successful. All right. And if you are successful, then you're blessed in certain ways. All right. We're blessed that we're able to run our businesses out of our home. I'm a night owl. My wife calls me a third shifter. I work well at night. Like, let me go till 1, 2 in the morning. I don't have to get up till 10 because I've created my life to be like that.
Yeah, Dan.
So
I woke up at 10 a.m. today, right?
Probably for different reasons.
But for other people, you can't do that, right? So if you're working at a career where you have to go into the office every day at 7 in the morning, then you have to adjust your life accordingly. All right.
Love it.
For me, when I was younger, I had to go. I had to go into, to work at certain times. The expectation was there.
Love it.
Now I've created my own life.
Yeah.
That's what we teach, is when you're starting to achieve those things, you are in control of your life. But most people don't understand that, or don't give them the freedom to believe that they can actually create the way their life turns out. Other people end up controlling it. So if you feel like you're sick and tired of getting up at 6 in the morning to go to work, do you have a dream maybe where you can start creating your own business, or pursuing a different career or a different job somewhere else that allows you to expand to do what you want to do? If it's because you want to sleep in till 9 or 10 in the morning, then start creating your life to do that. If it's not, so I don't know. I think it's different for everybody.
Powerful.
For me, it's different.
I love that. That was amazing.
Yeah. So basically, what I get out of that, it's not about what you can do; it's about what do you want to do, and now make it all
like
work.
have the choice instead of being that you have to, basically. So I love it. And normally, we do ask what would the title be of a book, but I mean, you're already number 2, and here we are. But gotta love it. But the question that I want to ask you is, which it's obviously part of your title and the content, but if you could summarize real quick. So some of our listeners out there that are at 0 right now, what's the success formula? Like, how do you become successful?
Well, we help people stop worrying and start winning in the areas of money, people, faith, work, health, and their hopes and dreams. The first thing you have to do to understand that is you have to get alone and spend time saying, what do I need to achieve in my life now that needs to get done? And once you do that, then the principles we teach is identifying those priorities, finding a proven plan, mastering persistence, the benefits of regular evaluation, and then tapping in the power of a success partner. Those are vital. And that's the ultimate success formula. It's nothing new. But these principles have been around for thousands of years, right? But I would, encourage your listeners to find a plan. It doesn't have to be my plan. Just find a plan that keeps you on track to start achieving the things you want to achieve. different people do things different ways. My plan isn't always the best fit for everybody, right? Although I wish it would be.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's my selfish desire. But we always tell people, if this isn't it, find one. Don't stop. You know, there are so many different people out there teaching the basic type of systems that you can go out there and learn. But don't ever give up. Just don't give up.
Love it. Love it.
So,
and where can people find you, Doug?
Just go to oneshotonelife.com. Everything's there. If you want to buy the book, amazon.com, bricks and mortar stores, wherever. I'm supposed to say for my publisher, wherever fine books are sold. Right?
There you go.
Yeah, you said it, you did it.
Online, bam, amazon.com, Barnes and Noble, wherever.
And then you're active on social media too, if you let them know where. I know Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, so I don't know those off the top of my head. If you go to One Shot One Life, they're all linked there.
Okay, well, there you go.
Most of them are under Doug Fitzgerald.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you look that up, they're all there. So
Well, thanks for coming out, Doug.
Sure.
This has been amazing.
Yeah, this is like the type that you have to listen to a second time.
For sure.
There's so much in there, yeah.
One more
That's
time,
awesome.
take some notes. I'm gonna have to take some notes. You know, those are my favorite shows. I mean, so far, I think that's how it's been. So, thanks for coming.
Thank you guys for letting. It's an honor.
Yeah, and anybody out there, once again, make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube. We're on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, basically anywhere podcasts are available. Subscribe and then follow us on Instagram. So let's get it.
Take care, guys.
My hand to please don't segregate. Dressed in a suit, I can't relate. Minority report, can't ignore. Being rich from poor and your credit score. My hand to please don't segregate. Dressed in a suit, I can't relate. Minority report, can't ignore.